Welcome to Unlearn, where we talk to industry leaders about unlearning how we go to market.
I'm Kelly Sarabin, and I run Tech Partner Enablement and Advocacy at HubSpot.
And I'm Asher Matthew, co-founder of Partnership Leaders.
The old ways of going to market are getting more expensive and less effective.
To thrive in an era of digital transformation, you have to go to market differently. Let's find out how. All right, Kelly, we're back on the show. It's doom and gloom as usual. We predicted this. And today we have somebody super special. Jamal, thanks so much for joining us.
Awesome to be here.
I know we took some time to get this episode scheduled. I think we did reschedule 4 times or 5 times or something like that.
And then we stopped scheduling and came back to it.
Worth the wait.
So, all right, Jamal. So tell us what's new. What's on top of your mind, or what's top of mind?
I've been deep in the world of go to market from a B2B enterprise seller perspective for a while. So that's super top of mind, and it's been very consuming, and I feel very boring because it's like the only thing that I've been doing for a while now. So that's kind of like where most of my learnings have been. I am seeing some, it feels like it's some collective aha moments that have been coming, are on the way for the last few years. And it's nice to be here now, which is that I've kind of been seeing this confluence. There's been one big kind of driving force or market reality, which is there's just been a ton of startups that got money in 2017, 18, 19. And they started their journey kind of as this bunch. And then they went through, going through the maturity curve of trying to grow up, survive and grow up. And along the way, the vast majority, kind of the standard has been velocity sales, right? And that made a lot of sense at the earlier stages. But a lot of them got more money and started to grow fast. And there came a time where it was time to go up market for multiple reasons. One, just to get larger deals. But then there was both the pandemic and now this downturn. And now lots of funders and management are advising the teams go more and more toward the enterprise because they're stable or more stable than the smaller companies, et cetera. And then the third influence is now kind of the rise of the CFO or the rise of the financial function, almost dethroning the CEO, or at least in the eyes of sellers. Because, we used to think it was the line of business, maybe IT, that made all these decisions. And now everybody's getting trumped by the CFO or the whole finance department. Yep. And so these multiple forces are turning into conversations that I'm having with CROs, which are basically like, it's time to really learn strategic selling. It's time to move. Some of them are actually saying, move away from the velocity sale. I was on a call with a CRO just last week, and she was saying, I'm at a venture-backed company. We're Series C, and almost by definition, that means that we are focused on the next 2 quarters. That's our whole world. And if we and I refuse to stay there, and a condition for me coming and taking this role was that we have got to look toward finding the right deals and the right partners. That's what she said. To find the right deals and the right partners. And if we do that, we can transform our company. But if we stay in this 2-quarter world, we'll never get the hyper growth.
Everything that you said all makes sense. The one thing that I'm always curious about, right, is when this CEO role started, it was supposed to be this revenue operator role, and it just became a forecasting role because the CEO needed somebody to go get the most accurate forecast from all of the field, right, and bring it back up. And before the the CEO did it himself, you know. And so and 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 it's a shame because like it's needed. You need one function, one role that actually brings all of the, let's call it, four horsemen of revenue, like sales, marketing, customer success, and biz dev together. And it doesn't have to be CRO, it can be CC, you can call it whatever you want, right? But that role was supposed to be an operator role, and now it's become an even more functional role, unless you're in a very large company, right? But like if you're a Series B, Series C company, you're effectively EVP of sales. And then you have to work with your other counterparts, and you're in most cases not actually operating the entire go-to-market engine. You're just operating your sales function and collaborating with everybody else.
Is that what you see too, Jamal? Does that align with what you see in the market?
I mean, I would say my visibility across these functions is relatively limited. So my whole background was I was an IC. I was an individual contributor forever. And even then, I didn't even know many people. And it was just me and my team. And I was heads down for like forever, like over a decade. And since leaving, now I start to talk with lots and lots and lots of sellers. Now that's changing too. And now more and more of the conversations are happening with directors, VPs, and now CROs. But I'm not in deep dialogue with revenue operations yet. I'm not in deep dialogue with the CMOs. So I don't want to, I don't have enough data to say, yeah, here's my experience.
Kelly always does this to me. She always says like, "Hey, let's fact check Asher by asking him guess the proof," you know. So
Trust but verify. But actually, I wanted to circle back to something Jamal said about the sort of the, I guess we would say, buyer's journey, which obviously is related to the seller's journey because the seller needs to accommodate the buyer's journey. We read a lot of research out of multiple places that are saying, especially as millennials are coming into positions of power, they want a more self-serve journey, and they want to spend less time with the AE, more time researching, more time talking to people in their networks. And we also have this product-led growth movement, right, which is a great fit for the SMB. But we do see people arguing it's great for enterprise too. So I would be curious, do you see in the enterprise sales process those two trends evincing themselves, that the enterprise buyers are wanting to interact less and less with the AE, and also looking to have a more product-led growth tied into that, which I think you could have it just be research-based, or you could have a product component. We see that with a lot of enterprise developer tools, that they do have something that the developers on the lower levels can play around with. But just curious, I mean, are you seeing those two trends in the enterprise space?
I am, and the silliest analogy just came to me, and it might sound really terrible, but this is the image. I always think in analogy. This is what came to me, and it's from my experience. Is like, I was a enterprise seller at Oracle forever, and then some smaller companies before and after that, and I tried to focus on doing some of the larger or the more complex deals, whether it's the PLG motion, or it's the desire of the buyers to have less interaction with an AE. In my reality, in kind of these bigger engagements that were like big time mission critical solutions that took a lot of software and a lot of people, it's kind of like, when you were in high school and or middle school even, and you'd have a party in the basement, but your parents are still upstairs. So it's kind of like the buying journey can replicate that somewhat. So in my experience, I would try to step out of the way as much as possible and facilitate whatever experience the buyer wanted to do, and pretty much kind of just make sure that it happened rather than be in their face with it all the time. And I can give you some examples. So one example is I would introduce customers to each other, and then I'd leave the room and just let them talk. We were in an RFP situation once, and I got the entire team from the company who was doing the RFP. It was like 20 people. we got on a plane and we went to another city and we visited another customer who was also a software company. They were both software companies and they were both using my product. Well, one was using my product and the other was thinking about it. So I got them to go and spend time. And some of the time we were all together and, talking up the storm, but I was in the back, right? And I was letting the customers interact with each other. And that kind of sealed the deal, because when they came out of the room and gave us feedback when we ultimately won, they were like, yeah, that thing that you did, taking us there and letting us run with that was the thing that got us, because they gave you like a 4.6, right? They didn't give you a 5, they gave you a 4.6, and they told us the bad stuff. So at least we knew where the skeletons were. And there's going to be skeletons everywhere.
And it sounds
we took
authentic, right? If you go on like Amazon.com and a product has like only 5-star reviews and they're all positive, you're like, this was all paid for by the vendor, right? But if people give a more nuanced response where they're like, everything has drawbacks, right? And they call those out, I feel like it adds the authenticity that buyers are looking for today. And I actually love that you did that, because I think, one of the reasons the vendor A's coming in later is the skepticism and the lack of trust that's accrued. So I think you creating that opportunity and facilitating them to have that direct connection with a third party that is going to be more trustworthy than you because you're biased. I think that's a great sales tactic.
Cool.
On the other side,
I want to dig into a little bit.
Yeah, go for it.
Sorry, I just wanted to dig in a little bit on because there's also this like other point that you made, which is which sort of meant like, is it like death of the SDR function, right? Because like we've been in a world where we've basically trained these people to just say stuff when they hear stuff, but actually not like have good conversations to uncover real pain and real problems. And that's basically the playbook of repeatable SDRs that's been going on for the last 10 years. And now if all those teams have to move to enterprise selling, which is really like requires you to think and, kind of be where the customer's been before and come with like real world examples and like, and real world proof. Is that where we're heading? Like, do you think we're gonna see like less and less of this SDR motion now, and the AEs have to go back to the old school way of being an AE and hunt for themselves?
What a great question. I haven't really thought of it that way. Like, is it the death of the SDR? What has been true for a long time?
We're just being dramatic.
So dramatic.
Is your life at risk?
Exactly.
You know, SDRs are listening to this, Asher.
Well, yeah,
the hate mail is coming in right now.
Exactly. Well, one audience that is not going to listen to this show.
Well, one thing that's been true. So there are, there are multiple players on a team, and there are one-on-one relationships that need to be managed among those multiple players. And it's funny, I'm going to do a session in a couple of weeks to talk about the relationship between the seller and the sales engineer. Well, now we're talking about the relationship of the seller and the SDR. And SDRs kill themselves, right? They really kill themselves. It's a tough job. It's a repetitive job. It's the most rejection of any of the segments. And at the same time, lots of sellers, especially at the large, portfolio tech companies like where I came from, I think that there's a general lack of appreciation for what they do. And if they don't see massive results, like I saw guys, at Oracle just blow through OD guys and saying, she's not getting me results, get me another. He's not getting me results, get me another. And so there's there's that. Sorry, Kelly, you want to say something?
Oh no, I was just picturing like a general throwing bodies at a problem when you were saying that, because I think, as you said, it's a very tough job. And I think it, usually have people fresh out of school being told to essentially just randomly harass people cold. They're not being set up for success as the role currently is at most companies. And I'm just seeing this person on high, just throwing more and more bodies at the problem, which is which is not an elegant solution.
Well, it's
So is it?
exacerbated when is it the end of the SDR? Is that where you're going back to?
Yeah, that's what I was, because
I
we're
mean,
basically just saying that, like, hey, these people aren't successful, and we keep like throwing them at this problem, and then everybody wants to move upstream to be safe, right? And I mean, this VC playbook is so different, right? Because they basically said growth at all cost, and everybody goes and hires like 50 SDRs, and then they, like, on one side they go to the market direct, on the other side they use marketing to start the inbound funnel, and they're just experimenting. They're like, which way is this going to fall? And then whichever way it falls and you see results, the other team, quite frankly, has to go, and then and then now you're in a world where we're like, hey, everybody has to be profitable, and VCs just don't have that word in their dictionary. Like, you open the Merriam-Webster of VC, and the profitability doesn't exist in there, right? Because that's just not how they operate, right? They're basically salespeople given money to go put the money at the highest leverage and get a high return back, right? Um, so it's interesting, like the whole piece, like, of where we are right now in terms of like, how does a go-to-market leader actually think about their plan for 2023, 24, 25? Like, and I don't even think people are going that far. I think they're just going to say, we're going to take it one quarter at a time, which, by the way, they learned from COVID. Because after people really understood what's happening in COVID, they were like, forget like 3 quarters. Well, let's just do 90 days. And all of the investment that follows that. Now, what you just said, which is super interesting, because during COVID, the CRO still was able to make decisions on investing in programs and projects and tools, and now you have the CFO, and how do you get through the CFO, which I think you have some experience with.
yeah. Let me finish
Or
a
you don't.
thought, which is I don't think it's the death of the SDR. I think so. So I see any territory as an investment portfolio in which you have to choose what levels of risk
Yep.
are you willing to take on in that portfolio. And what I think that so the SDRs match well with low ticket, high velocity sales plays. Now, I think that slice of the pie, of the portfolio pie, is going to thin because it's not very profitable, but it's easy. It's more predictable, so it has a place in the pie. But now they're going to increase the slices that are either the medium risk or larger size, and SDRs will be challenged to do cold outreach to higher stakeholders within customer organizations to begin a conversation. But that's where the conversation needs to begin, because you got to go high to say, okay, I got a solution and it covers a problem, but is
Yep.
this problem something that you care about right now? And is this something that you care about enough that your CEO will, or that your CFO will fund? And it's like, don't do a demo. Don't do anything more. Don't spend an ounce of human or technical resources until you get a
Yep.
it's in the wheelhouse of a problem we need to fix. And that's a hard conversation for an
Which really is
SDR
like
to
the
have.
Yeah, which really is the discovery phase, right? Like that's basically where you're supposed to go in and refine the pain problem, and make sure it's actually real pain, and get the whole thing done. And it feels like back in the day, you used to have inside sales that would have done that, right? Because they were a little bit more of sellers than just the SDR function as we have today.
Yeah. Yeah. I I didn't want to derail where you wanted to go. I kind of wanted to finish
Okay.
on that thought. It sounded like you had a whole nother topic you wanted to
Yeah.
get to. But long story short, I think SDRs are still going to be around. I think they're going to be used for a thinner slice of the pie, and there will be more investment in a more strategic sale And that's not just at the enterprise level, that's at commercial and SMB as well. But I think there's going to be a priority to start conversations at a higher level than where they're starting now.
Yeah, I agree with you. And do you feel like there's enough enablement in the marketplace for these people to learn how to do that, or like what's the how would you train these people? Because
So
they just haven't been in those environments, right? Or would you just go hire different people?
there is that. There is just buying the capability that already exists. That's one way. The second way is trying to do it through training, and the third way to try to do it is through learning from peers. And I guess somewhere within that is coaching, like coaching from your manager or coaching from an external source. And I mean, you're teeing me up for this because this is my day job, coaching, which is great.
Exactly.
But one thing that I was surprised to learn from our community, the enterprise sellers community, I was kind of surprised to learn that one of the top gripes or lamentations of enterprise sellers is that whether they love their manager or don't get along with their manager, in either case, they don't get the coaching, like the deal coaching that they want, either because the manager isn't good at it, or they could be good at it or capable, but they're just too dang busy. And that, over and over, the reps say things like, I only get a half an hour with my manager, and he has to just go through the pipeline. And it's just what's in Salesforce. That's it. But what I really want is somebody to roll around, what's the best strategy for this account, this personality, how should they be dealt with, etc. So that has come out to me to be like a massive pain among sellers. And then the second thing is just the
I believe it.
If you want to go upstream, it becomes more complex. And when it becomes more complex, there's more variables. And so it cannot be a formula. It's got to be a framework.
Yeah, and I don't think you can throw someone in who's inexperienced, 22, fresh out of college, and say, just go figure out how to talk to these higher level decision makers, because it's just not that easy. And I think it's interesting what you say about coaching versus trainings, because I think at least at larger companies, you usually do have trainings available, which is very different from coaching, right? Training is usually like self-serve materials you can consume, courses you can take, which I think try to provide some frameworks. But if you're going to stick with hiring fresh grads out for this role, I think you need the coaching component too to be successful. Otherwise, I think to your point, the people that will thrive are able to find that coaching for themselves elsewhere, whether it's a peer on their team, someone they're paying for services, or just networking and they find someone to mentor them. But organizations are not doing a good job of providing that in-house.
Do you have hypotheses on why they're not able, or why are organizations not able to provide this? Like, why are the managers not able to provide this in-depth deal coaching?
Well, it's a few things. One is they're literally strapped for time. They just either have teams that are too large, or hotter deals than that, that rep is not a part of, that they've got to manage through, or they're managing up and they've got all these reports to put together. So it's a time thing. Or there's lots of cases where managers are good managers, but they got into the management role after having only a few years as an individual contributor. And so they don't know how to coach through a more complex sale because they've never gone through one themselves. So they're willing, but they're not experienced enough to be able.
Yeah, that's what I actually thought was actually. So I can totally see it. So I've having been in two, let's call them growth companies, right? There comes a time where there's just so much pressure, and everybody's trying to kind of work on the system to make sure the system is correct. But then the people who are supposed to do all of this coaching are either totally inexperienced, or I would say in most cases, even if they want to help, they just don't have time because the velocity pressure is just too much. And that's what this like growth at all costs type of like mission actually does inside of a company. And then the best survive, and then the whole hypothesis is like the best will survive, and the ones that don't couldn't get it done, and then they become labeled as people that can't get it done. It's not actually that. People would love to try, and in most cases they can get there. uh, but those people are also shooting for like, hey, if this becomes a $7 billion company, I'm going to retire. So like this whole thing comes down to a really bad experience for the frontline reps. So I can attest to both of those things, where like the time and the capability piece are both a problem.
Part of what you
I
said
think
just
Asher
totally.
tried.
Sorry, go ahead, Kelly.
Go ahead.
Part
No,
of
this
what
is
you
totally
just
a different point.
described was
So
like
you
my whole first 10 years of selling, which was I wasn't coached well by most of my managers. A couple were really good. I didn't really get it, so I just fumbled along to the point where I got fired twice in a row for underperformance, like twice in a row. And then I was just, kind of reeling. And then I got a job, and that job was at Oracle. And a few years later, I got into a selling reality where I had two really potent mentors. And they didn't really tell me what to do as much as how to think about it, how to think about the scenario, how to think about the problem, how to think about the person. And it was those aha moments that just changed everything. And that's why I'm not a big fan of methodologies. I like frameworks. To me, a methodology is relatively stepwise or formulaic. And I'm overgeneralizing just to make the point. A framework is some pieces that you can move around that has flexibility based on whatever scenario you happen to find yourself in. Anyway, yeah, I'm agreeing with what you're saying, Asher, that the reality that the reps find themselves in is often unguided, and a lot of the times their lack of success is not it's not their own fault. I don't know what if I say it's not of their own making, but it's like, man, if you just help them see the forest for the trees, they could that person could be good. She's not good right now, but she could be if you just helped her understand. And as soon as you turn that vision on, she's off to the races.
And some super remarkable people have done really large deals, right? Like you don't need a Stanford degree for this stuff. You just need to make sure that you have enough like know-how how to manage the process. And at the end of the day, it is a process, right? Because like companies before us, and actually, like I would say people before us have trained how other people buy for decades, right? And so everybody's running some sort of a process, some sort of evaluation cycle, but the experience inside the cycle doesn't require a Stanford MBA. It just requires that like a person actually understands how to like navigate, and is cool, calm, and collected, and curious, and then tease this thing up properly. And then there's like some proven tactics, like many of them come from your um, community, on how do you navigate enterprise sales well. So like for the people listening to this thing, Jamal actually helped me understand how to do enterprise sales, so that's why I kind of wanted him back on the show too. And the stuff that he talks about actually works really well. And so if you're listening, and if you have friends that are really like curious about enterprise sales, I would go check his community out, and you'll find a lot of people that are very high income earners in there, and they're just regular people. They're not.
I think I'd love to hear your thoughts on that, Jamal, because I think it is interesting in terms of what are the traits of a person who is going to do well and excel at enterprise sales? I
Well,
mean,
that's a
it's a
good one.
very social job, right? Your social intelligence is probably more important than your IQ. But I would be curious if you sort of have assembled in your head, what are some of the traits that, you know, ultimately are going to be really beneficial in that role and enable people to thrive and be successful? Because I agree, it's certainly not a degree, right? And not a particular degree.
It's a really good question. A few things come to mind. It's somebody who can play chess instead of checkers.
With people.
With people. Yeah, there's
That just sounds
absolutely.
very wrong.
I mean, okay, so let's hit your first point. The first point was the social element. That social element is absolutely key. And I've had a few kind of impassioned conversations about the priority of the relationship builder in terms of the skills or qualities of a competent enterprise seller. It's it's essential. Mm, it's near essential. I've seen some guys do it who don't have great relationships, but they can pull off some really sizable deals too. Let's say it's super important when matched with the ability to dig and dig and dig until you find a gem of a problem statement or generally called an insight. Because we're in the open market and lots of people are trying to sell stuff and lots of people are trying to fix stuff. So if we are going to unearth or engineer or discover or whatever you want to call it, a sizable B2B transaction, we've got to be able to work to be able to look and find some gold or gems or whatever you want to call it that others have either overlooked or not found for some reason. Because if we just go in and say, I got a widget, the widget does this, that's so superficial, it's going to pass by everybody because they keep seeing all these sellers saying, I got a widget, I got a widget, I got a widget. But when you dig really deep, you're no longer really acting like what a seller would look like normally. You look more like a detective or a consultant or something like that. And that's kind of what there's what I mean when I say playing chess instead of checkers. One, they have to think in more complex structures, both about the
Mhm.
problem and about the network of people involved. Because there's going to be a ton more people at the customer you got to worry about. It's not just one or two. And there's a ton more people within your company because the deal team is not going to be you and the sales engineer. It's not going to be the seller and the sales engineer. It's going to be a deal team of 5 or 10 or 15 people.
And
Oh,
I just want to quickly point out, like right here, because again, people are going to listen to it, and I think even in my own journey, like a SMB seller has aspirations or massive aspirations to become an enterprise seller
Hmm.
because that's where they think all the money is, right? Which is
Hmm.
true, right? But the SMB mindset and the mid-market mindset and the enterprise mindset are three different mindsets. It's almost like you have to fire yourself as an SMB seller or mid-market seller when you're going to go into enterprise sales. And it's a very tough, I would say, mindset shift to make when you have had 7 years of coaching, training to go, 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 go. And so there is a transition that happens, and I would highly recommend, like, people listening to this podcast is like, if you want to be in that world, find a mentor or find a coach or join a community or like wherever you want to be, because like this is not something you're going to be able to switch on and switch off. There's very few people that can just like pivot on a dime, right? um and but it is a realization that like the mindset does need to be changed to do this. And I wanted to point this out as Jamal was like saying this, saying his statement.
yeah, one thing I wanted to go into too is for CROs or heads of sales, people who are hiring, other than previous success in the role, is there a good way to run interview processes where you can get to those traits that you just identified and kind of flag them? Because in my experience, I think hiring salespeople is really hard. And to go beyond just someone saying, I have this record, right? Which, depending on what it is, can be a great green flag. But any advice to people who are hiring?
One thing that what would I say is a green flag instead of a red flag for me is downplaying and skepticism. When you talk with somebody who's good at this, they're often a natural skeptic, and that doesn't mean that they're not also optimistic about the possibilities of a deal, but they're always looking for either what could go wrong, or what are the gotchas, or it's not like they have to be snarky about it. But so what I would do if I was hiring somebody is I would either say, walk me through one of your deals, or, okay, here's a scenario. Tell me how you would think through it. And then I would start to poke around, particularly how they would deal some of the more complex issues, which are political realities within an organization and the dynamics between executives within the customer organization, how they also manage the relationships with internal resources, especially executives, and also partnerships. So I think one of the most senior arenas of enterprise sales is selling with partners. And what I mean by that, I can only speak to the partnerships that I've experienced, which is where you get a software company or a tech company, and you get either a management consulting or an IT consulting company, and together they form a partnership to deliver outcomes to the ultimate client or customer. And so in my experience, I've been at the Oracles or Samas of the world, and we would work with the Deloittes and the Accentures of the world. And everybody had different roles, but it's a whole third leg to the stool. So you're dealing with a political or business reality among players at the customer. Same thing with your own players, and now with the partner as well. And I could go super deep into all this stuff, but that's kind of when you can discuss all three of those and really see how the seller thinks, then you know if they've been there and done that and how well they do it.
Hey, you just hit on our favorite word, partnerships.
Not
we're all about
ecosystems.
partnerships. Well, actually, that's probably true. Our favorite word is skepticism, but we'll call it partnerships for this one. I think we're gonna have to have like Jamal back on the show, because like this show or this episode got us really deep into like the minds of like how do enterprise sellers become enterprise sellers, and the coaching element of like why it's tough to provide coaching and stuff. I think I think we should leave the audience hanging a little bit and bring in Jamal on back, unless Kelly, you have some other thoughts, because you always have
One
thoughts.
last point that I want to circle back to, which is the CFO. I think that was such an interesting comment, and what's super interesting about it is, how knowledgeable is the CFO going to be about every single software domain, right? When they're kind of having input on these decisions. So I don't know, Jamal, if you have, some tips for people who realize now that they need to get the CFO on board, and what they can do particular to that role to try to move it forward if there's either resistance or a lack of clarity there.
Yeah, there's a lot of chatter about the CFO. It's the CFO as well as the whole finance organization. So there are some organizations which are quite formulaic in how they manage finance, which includes purchases. And there are others which are a little bit more ad hoc. So there's a spectrum. So you can't run it as a formula. And I always like to say enterprise sales is the only challenge where you're encouraged to cheat by getting somebody to tell you the answers to the test. So instead of guessing or conjuring up some great strategic plan, I just go to the customer and I'm like, how does it work with you guys? I mean, is it going to, number one, Is this kind of a thing important to you? Number two, do you know if the CFO or the finance department would support it? Is it the kind of thing that they're going to fund this year? And how do you know? Because I don't want to burn a bunch of your time and my team's time. If we both love this thing, we get to the second, the 2-yard line, and then the CFO shuts it down. And when you can start from a place like that, they're going to appreciate it too, because it's happening all the time. So what I would do is I would go to the person I'm dealing with right up front, and I'd say, does it even make, that's the skepticism coming out, right? It's a communication from rep to customer. It's like, I don't know if this is going to go anywhere. I'd love to show you what I got if you think it's going to help you. But even before we can do that in today's environment, don't you think we need to go get permission from mom and dad, meaning the finance department? So it's now it's become a very early step to kind of be a gating factor to all kinds of activities.
I like how the enterprise salespeople are having parties in their parents' basement and cheating on their test. Don't read too much into it.
How do you scan for that? Let's go talk to mom or dad and part of the hiring process.
That's right.
All right, I think this was great. We learned a lot, Jamal. Thanks for coming on the show. We're gonna bring you back on a little bit later in the series and go through the other three points, because I think you just have like tons of info on how people should think about enterprise sales and as everybody makes their way through it. But thanks again for coming on, and best of luck in your all the ventures that you're involved in.
Thank you, guys. It was great being here. I look forward to coming back.
Thank you for listening to Unlearn. Subscribe wherever you listen and visit unlearnpodcast.com for the transcripts.